Welcome to the Legacy Guard. This is Draco Argentum, joined by Taurus Crimson and Porglord.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
We are here today to talk about Star Wars. The Clone Wars is back. As some of you may not know, if you've been under a rock, back on July 19th at Comic-Con, Disney announced that the Star Wars cartoon would be coming back for at least one season of 12 episodes. Back in 2013, the series was cut short when the Lucasfilm franchise was purchased by Disney. However, it was decreed that the Clone Wars would remain canon and thus has remained an important part of the story up until now. Dave Filoni is still going to be directing the final 12 episodes, and I know that we're all looking forward to seeing the new episodes in their entirety. Porglord, what did you like the most from the original Clone Wars? Was it 4 seasons worth of it?
5.5.
5.5.
I think it was just mainly getting to see kind of the extension of the prequel timeline, getting to see some of the the characters that were introduced in those movies get fleshed out. You get to meet some new Jedi Masters and Padawans, and explore some different parts of the galaxy. So it was just mainly getting to see kind of new stuff, new stories, new people, that kind of thing. Horse.
Anakin. One word. The Anakin in that series was the Anakin I had always wanted. No offense to Hayden Christensen. I'm sure he's a fine fellow, but the way he was portrayed, the way that character was executed in the prequels did not land for me at all. It didn't add up to what later became Vader, at least to me. And that wasn't entirely his fault. A lot of that laid on George as the director. But the Anakin in the Clone Wars was the Anakin that I had always imagined, and I think that was a very conscious decision. I don't know if George wanted to rectify that or if that was a Filoni thing, but regardless, I think it was a conscious decision on the creators of that show to make Anakin more of a tough character, more of a leader, a stronger character. And Matt Lanter, as the voice of Anakin, really knocked it out of the park. He wasn't trying. If you watch the cell animated, what Porglord calls the Samurai Jack Clone Wars, that voice actor tried to imitate the Anakin from the prequel films. In this series, Matt Lanter does his own thing. He recreates Anakin. So when I think of Anakin Skywalker, I always think of the Clone Wars Anakin. My number one Star Wars wish, of course, is to green screen Matt Lanter into the prequels over Hayden Christensen. I know it'll never happen, but I can always hope. New characters. You've got Asajj Ventress. You've got Ahsoka and Cad Bane. You've got Captain Rex, and Darth Maul's return. Some of my favorite Star Wars characters, namely Asajj Ventress and Ahsoka. Despite being a sexist, both of those characters are phenomenal, and their arc really shows a lot of growth. When you meet Ahsoka in the Samurai Jack Clone Wars, she's hell bent on destroying the Jedi and impressing Count Dooku and becoming a Sith. And by the time we leave her, she's actually
Ventress.
Yeah. Well, who did I say?
Ahsoka.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Asajj Ventress. Yeah, by the end of the Clone Wars, what we see, she's actually helping the Jedi. The Dark Disciple novel, she's become a very complex and complicated character. So, same with Ahsoka. I did not like that character when I first saw her in the Clone Wars film. I thought she was obnoxious and annoying, and I thought, man, this is going to be really tough to get through. But the way they developed her character, by the time that show ends and she walks away from the Jedi Order, she has grown so much as a character. She's a very good example of character development. And then being brought back into Rebels really kind of took it to a whole new level. So that for me is what I really loved about the Clone Wars series, were new characters, believable characters, and watching them grow and becoming invested in them. And as a result, the prequel series for me holds that much more weight. What about you, Draco?
First thing, Matt Lanter is Taurus Crimson's spirit animal.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
I know we all here at the Legacy Guard know of your long-standing wish, your genie wish of replacing Hayden Christensen with Matt Lanter, and perhaps and someone can and one day, a la George Lucas special edition him into it. You never know. You never know.
You never know. Anything is possible, right?
Anything is possible. Correct. For me, the biggest thing about the Clone Wars was it provided the evolution of the characters that you had seen in the Attack of the Clones to where it made a more seamless transition into the Revenge of the Sith. Because in Clone Wars, you have in the Attack of the Clones, you have an Anakin Skywalker who is coming into his power. You have him falling in love with Padme Amidala, and then in the Revenge of the Sith, you see he is being torn back and forth between the Emperor and the Council, the Jedi Council, and he is their plaything. And in both movies, he's kind of a whiny turd, for lack of a better use on a PG video.
Wow.
So he's establishing the Skywalker lineage of being whiny from time to time. You really don't have much respect for the character simply from watching the movies. He's just this pawn being used by Sidious, by Palpatine. But in viewing the Clone Wars, you get more character depth. You find out, you learn more about Anakin's successes instead of how he was manipulated, instead of how he was failing. And from articles I've read, it seems like Hayden Christensen was portraying Anakin Skywalker as George Lucas intended. So if you have problems with that, you got to take that up with George. I mean, George Lucas is not the almighty perfectionist, almighty perfect.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, as an actor, you're being directed to do a thing. I mean, even the actress, why am I drawing a blank, that played Padme, what's her name?
Drawing a blank.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman, thank you. Is a wonderful actress, and everything else she's been in, she's phenomenal. But she was completely flat in that movie. I mean, that's a directorial responsibility to get the best out of your actors. So I agree. Don't blame Hayden.
Well, it's not a problem. Well, you got to rely on your director. Ultimately, is the one that decides how much depth your characters are going to have. Now, Padme, she was consumed for the most part by her role as the queen of Naboo. She was a politician, so her true feelings are always going to be concealed. You get to see more of her true feelings and more of her background through the Clone Wars. The other thing I really liked about the Clone Wars were the arcs. You get to see so much of the universe, so much of the lore. You get the Mortis arc. You get these large concepts about the Force. You see Yoda in the final series go to learn how to project himself as a Force ghost from the what is it, the Sisterhood of the Wills?
I don't know that they're called wills.
Get down.
I think they're considered a separate entity. I don't know if that's been canonized yet or not, but
I don't know if they themselves are the wills, but I think that they are kind of like an order of monks almost.
Yeah,
that exist within the Force.
Force entities that exist for the sole purpose of, I assume, ascending Force users to the next level.
Yes, I'd agree with that. It explains how Ben Kenobi was able to come back, how Yoda was able to come back, so on and so forth, and fade and become one with the Force. So, anyhow, so Porg Lord, what are you looking forward to in the upcoming season? I know they're currently projecting 12 episodes. I personally am hoping that they're going to expand that out into 2 full seasons. What are you looking forward to? Porg
Hopefully just getting to see them tie up some of the story arcs that they weren't able to finish before it was canceled the first time. I don't necessarily think we're going to get to see an end to Ventress's storyline, since they've kind of wrapped that up in the book. But I mean, obviously, you kind of get to see what happens to Ahsoka afterwards, based on the trailer. I kind of hope that they kind of give some kind of direction on what happens to the majority of the clones, but I don't think that's going to happen, since it's supposed to take place before Revenge of the Sith.
Execute Order Alt F4.
Right. So I mean, it'll just be kind of interesting, and like I said, just to see if they can wrap up some of those storylines. Taurus?
Well, I'm excited for a number of reasons. Number one is that we had spent when did you say they announced this? July 19th?
July 19th.
So we had spent right at 7 months bitching about Star Wars, and how bad The Last Jedi was, and how bad the state of Lucasfilm was. And within a couple of weeks, Lucasfilm stopped attacking fans, and then all of a sudden you get the announcement of Clone Wars. So for one, I'm excited that Lucasfilm is at least listening to the fans and what they want. So for Star Wars as a whole, as a brand, I'm excited about that. That maybe the Fandom Menace has actually won their first battle and got the attention. So that's for starters. Secondly, I'm excited for the Lucasfilm ace in the hole, Dave Filoni, returning to his baby. I mean, this was his
Brainchild.
project. Yeah, but he was also not only was he kind of the executive of that show, he was also the Padawan while he was making that series, because George Lucas was heavily involved. So while Filoni was the showrunner, he was learning how to tell Star Wars stories from George while he was doing that. So now he's coming back as kind of the master. I mean, George is not in the picture anymore. He's gone and done Rebels, and I think we all agree he wrapped that show up nicely. So to see him come back and actually tie a bow on, and actually have some kind of you have a finale to the Clone Wars series, right? You've got episode 3, that's your finale. But there are a lot of loose ends. So as Porglord said, I want to see some of those things wrapped up. Now, as far as, for me, what are you excited about, and what's the reality of the situation? We're not going to know for a while. 12 episodes is not a lot. Clone Wars toward the end of the series was known for doing 4-episode arcs, so I would assume we're going to get 3 arcs in this new season. I think it's going to be continued. I don't think this will be the last. I think if this does well, that they'll continue to do it. But what I really want to see, and I know Porglord didn't think this is going to happen, but I really want to see Asajj Ventress's arc finalized on screen. And I know that was 8 episodes. It was an 8-episode script that they turned into the novel Dark Disciple. But I don't know that a lot of people went out and read that novel. I don't even know a lot of people knew about it that were Clone Wars fans. I mean, I know the hardcore ones did, but regardless, that was a wonderful novel and a wonderful finish to her arc as a character, and I would love to see that on screen, because I know they still have the scripts for it, and part of it was animated. There were 8 animatics, two arcs. There was the Utapau Crystal arc, and then the Bad Batch arc that were animated and voiced, not fully rendered, but animated. So they were animatics that were released on either the Blu-ray or StarWars.com. I'd love to see those finalized versions, but if you do that, there's 8 episodes gone right there. And then there was the Son of Dathomir comic, which was a 4-part arc with Palpatine and Maul. So I don't know in 12 episodes if they're just going to do new stories, or if they're going to go back and do some of the stuff that fans are aware of that weren't finished, or what. But regardless, I think Filoni's going to tell us some good stories, and he's going to tie it in nicely. Draco?
I agree. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the plots that were left hanging out in the air. A large part of the question that came about from the Clone Wars is with the growing relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka as, Master and Padawan. What happens? How does she exit the picture? How was she no longer there? What separated her from Anakin when she seemed to be one of the things that were keeping him stable and would have kept him stable in the case of, the possibility of losing his Padme Amidala. So I'm really hoping that we do see from the trailer, which anyone can find by going to youtube.com and searching for the Clone Wars. You can definitely tell that it's a return to the Ahsoka plot line. So we will see Ahsoka wrapped up, I do believe, and the final split between Anakin and Ahsoka, where she goes off on her own to do her own thing. I would also like to see the son of the son of
Dathomir,
the Darth Maul plot, because as far the last we see him in the Clone Wars, he's been taken captive by Sidious, and we don't know what happens. The next time anyone ever sees him after that is, spoilers incoming, in the end of the Solo movie, when he shows up and is the head of the Red Crimson Mafia of some sort. So
the Taurus Crimsons.
almost. I'm looking forward to seeing it. As you mentioned, when this was announced, a lot of faith was restored into Disney, and I do see it as a goodwill gesture on the part of Disney towards trying to recapture some of those long-term fans, those fans that have been fans of the series for 30 years, who have been, let's say, driven away a little bit by some of the recent material, who were left unsatisfied. I do think that this is a good first step, and anyone who is angry at Disney Lucasfilm for, say, the events of The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, something to keep in mind is quite evidently people have shown their displeasure to Disney by not attending Solo because it was a bomb. And people can continue to vote with their wallets. No one has to go see any movie they don't want to see. You don't have to buy a DVD. You don't want to buy. But you have to be aware that once a corporation has changed its colors, or once they have corrected their course, you want to reward them for correcting that course and for staying in that course. So to a certain point, you definitely want to continue to put pressure on the studio to do correct things, to do what you want them to do. But once they've shown that they are willing to work with you and they are moving in the right direction, then it is our responsibility to reward them and encourage them to continue doing so. And I think the hard part is going to be determining, once we've reached that point, how do you know when to go all chips back in on Disney once they've moved on.
Absolutely, man. Porglor, you got any final words? Anything else you want to maybe see happen or hope for?
No, but I will be interested to get a little bit off track here. Because with the trailer that we've seen for Clone Wars here, you're going to have Ahsoka, and obviously something's going to happen on Mandalore because you have a Bo-Katan standing there next to her, and with the recent rumors coming out that the new live-action series is going to take place several years after Jedi, and it's supposedly going to involve Mandalore, the Mandalorians. I wonder if this is not going to be some sort of way for them to bridge, some of the past stuff into the new stuff and bring, say, Ahsoka to a wider audience and bring her into live action. And also you would have the tie-in as well with Sabine being Mandalorian. So I'd be interested to see if any of that pans out and it's true or not.
And that's an interesting idea, and the way that this is played out, had they finished Clone Wars back when they were actually in production, it wouldn't give them the opportunities that they have now. So, like Porglord said, they can actually do a much better job now, knowing how things are mapped out in the future of tying them in. So it's actually in the long run better that it happened this way, assuming it's done right, for them to tie things into a live action series or into Rebels a little tighter, or into the Ahsoka book where Ahsoka has a choice to either take down Maul or save Captain Rex. So I was one that didn't really feel like Ahsoka's story needed wrapping up, because I mean she left the Order, and that to me was enough, until you see her again and you realize that she still wants to play some part. But just another couple of points on what I want to see real fast on the new series is I want to see Anakin's downfall fleshed out a little bit more. I was never satisfied with episode 3 where he's a Jedi at the beginning of the movie and then he's killing younglings by the end of it. Like, I didn't see that happen in that movie. I didn't see that descent. And Clone Wars was doing that. I mean, there were outbursts where Anakin is actually yelling at his comrades saying, you know, why, if we're not willing to do what it takes to win the war, if we're going to let our morals get in the way, we're going to lose the war. So he's already starting to question the ethics of the Jedi and their methods. So I want to see them take him down that road to the dark side a little bit. And I don't know if 12 episodes will be enough to do that, but I sure would like to see that Anakin get a little closer to the Vader that he becomes in episode 3. Back to you, Draco.
I mean, in closing, I really don't. I'm excited to see the material again. I'm excited to get dip my toes back into this universe to learn a little bit more about what happens. I haven't read all the books. I haven't read the comics. So for me, I have only seen the Clone Wars cartoon. I've seen Rebels, and I've seen the movies. And up until I have not yet seen Solo, but I have seen those are it. So I guess I would classify myself as your middle of the road fan who hasn't gone truly deep. So whereas I have read some of the books, I have not read any of the books that pertain to the Clone Wars. So I'm just excited to see more of the universe. I am excited to see how it may tie in to the to Rebels, as you mentioned. I do see the new series, the new live-action series, Porg, if it is set on Mandalore or among Mandalorians, there is a good chance that Sabine Wren will be playing a part in it. I can only wonder who they would cast as a live-action representation of Sabine, except that in the end of Rebels, we're told that Sabine and Ahsoka Tano are going off in search of Ezra Bridger, because he has gone missing.
Don't you want to see that show, though?
The live action show?
No, that just the concept that they put in your head at the end of Rebels is that Sabine and Ahsoka are going on this quest to find Ezra and Thrawn. Like, wouldn't that be a neat, like, Star Trek style show of their adventures in space? You know, they've got a purpose, but they don't really know exactly where they're going, so they're just going through space. You know, they're not fighting the Empire, which is what Star Wars had been. I think that would be a really neat concept for a show.
Episode 1, Where the Space Whales Go.
I'm down for it, man. Those are both great characters. I'd love to see where they end up.
But if Sabine Wren is going to be with Ahsoka Tano searching for Ezra Bridger and Thrawn, then it's not likely that, I mean, unless they're taking along a small contingent of Mandalorians with them, it may be kind of difficult to manage.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I want to throw out a quick question before we wrap this up. Porg, final episode of Clone Wars, the actual finale. What do you want to see in the last episode?
I don't know if I really have anything that I just got to see. I mean, I would think some sort of cool, epic lightsaber battle would be awesome. Maybe with Ahsoka and Maul, because I believe Maul is still on Mandalore at this time, or maybe shortly after. But I mean, a good lightsaber battle is always nice to see.
Absolutely. That would be cool. Draco?
I don't know. I have a sneaky suspicion that the very last episode is going to be success on Mandalore, but they're going to get the message that the Chancellor has been abducted, and so they're going to have to rush off to Coruscant to rescue the Chancellor, and it's going to lead directly into Episode 3.
That is what I want to see. If you watch the Samurai Jack series, the Cell animated Clone Wars series, that is exactly what happens. Anakin and Kenobi get a message to go rescue the Chancellor. General Grievous in the Clone Wars series, as you know, is healthy, I guess would be the term for a cyborg. And when you see him in Episode 3, he's coughing all the time. That is explained in the Samurai Jack series, where Mace Windu crushes his chest as he's taking the Chancellor. I think it would be real cool as a nod to the original Clone Wars series, as well as a tie-in to the movie, to show Palpatine getting captured and Anakin and Kenobi getting the call as the very last scene. But
Agreed.
That'd tie it all in nicely. But that's all I've got to say on it. Anyone else have any final words?
I'm good.
I'm good as well.
All right. Well, then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping in and spending some time with us as we discussed the new Star Wars Clone Wars. So remember, everyone, be kind.
Live long and prosper.
And may the Force be with you.